Morning, Abe.
Hey, good morning, Matt. How you doing?
Good, good. Just
Awesome.
enjoying Veterans Day. Kids are home,
Yeah,
so it's nice to have them home in the morning and unexpectedly. So yeah,
absolutely. Yeah, we
but
kind of needed this break, to be honest. We've been on a roll the last few
yeah,
weeks. I know you and I.
absolutely, absolutely, and uh, and we do want to thank all the veterans out there for the service, and we have some veterans at Circa. We appreciate all of you, and definitely. So it's nice. It's a nice day to uh to relax and also reflect on those people. I have some people in my family that are in the military and um, have given a lot in their own way to the country in that way. So appreciate that. So um,
Absolutely.
but yeah.
Yeah. I want to give a specific shout out to a few people that are in our company. Paul Kim, our accountant, Dave
Mhm.
Chu, who's actually in camp right now as we speak, I believe until the end of the year. And then Joe Bartley, who also is a vet. So thank you guys for your service as well as your families and the sacrifices you guys make and continue to make for our country and for us. Thank you so much.
Absolutely, absolutely, yeah. So, so we've had a long couple weeks here of a lot of good things, and a lot of evenings of work back early in the morning and back to the evening and back to the morning. It just we've been definitely running. So yeah, and so yeah, so when those things were the at Circa, we're really focused on really the building community, right, within Circa and within our realtor community, and we really champion building community. That's the whole Circa name is from that proximity, like the people around you, like have an impact, right, a positive impact, and make it better, right, the proximity where you're around, and so as far as the building community part of things, we've done. We reached out to our agents this last month and a half and really tried to really discover the agents out there in our community who've done a great job during an escrow with them, and then we invited those agents to celebrate uh, not just the transaction, but to celebrate the relationship and that these people are doing it right out there for the consumer, how they work hard to make sure things go well for the consumer in the escrow. And so yeah, so we did a couple dinners this last 2 weeks and very successful. And it wasn't surprising. The people there were great people, great humans, as we say. And yeah, and I had give you the credit. You're the one that thought of the idea of the dinners that way. So uh,
Oh
yeah,
yeah,
nice job.
no, I
Cheers to
mean,
you, Abe.
no. It's just it literally is like it was all of us kind of coming together, trying to think like what's the best way to like connect, like what would be
Right,
like attractive even for people to come out to, because I know we're all like inundated with, hey, come out to this, come out to that, go network with other agents, and come to this mastermind and whatnot. And I know there's a lot of that going on. I know also there's a lot of value in those things and a lot of brokerages giving value that way. But
right.
I think it was interesting that you and I think Mike was in the room at the time. We just went back to like, hey, what's fun? What's enjoyable? What would people like? What's something we want to gift people, like genuinely, and what would be just a great experience to kind of hang out over and bond over. And so, sushi, sushi
Yeah,
was the thing, right? And yeah, omakase sushi, especially where it just feels like such a like a how do I say it, like a concierge experience, right?
yeah.
And gotta really thank the restaurant that we went to too. This local one in Yorba Linda called Sushi Noguchi, which I've been going to for a lot of years, and it's a husband wife couple that owns it, small business, and they put out excellent food. And so I would dare to say that they're like one of the top in OC that for me at least, are definitely one of my favorites. And so thank you to them for helping us put on like a really nice kind of
Absolutely.
curated night for people that we wanted to celebrate. And so yeah, but it was a great night, and we had really great people come out, which was super exciting and fun. And then it was nice to have our agents there too, just to like celebrate a deal. I don't think we do that enough with each other, inter brokerage or in this industry. And so So we wanted to kind of lead the way and say, hey, let's do that. Let's have a good night where we celebrate together, and just say thanks for being an awesome agent, not even in our company, but at another company, doing a great job for your clients, because that's worth celebrating.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think when your goal again is back to kind of like the book Never Eat Alone, but your goal is not to get something out of something, but your goal is to just build community, build relationships just for the sake of that. And you do that with intentionality and with authenticity. I think it's that's what we all know makes the world, better, right? So in our small way, uh,
Yeah,
and that we're not trying to be a tech company saying we're changing the world, but 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 I think we are changing our community, the small community we can affect, right? And so yeah, really happy about that. And I think that the omakase, what we also like to try to help people discover and experience new things, because that does help you grow, right? We're about personal growth. And I grew up where we would go to dinner occasionally, right? My family, we usually were home cooked meals, but we go to dinner occasionally. But we go to dinner, you just read off of a menu and you tell them what you want, and you're trying to figure out, and then you get your food. And I remember the first time, I don't know when it was, but where it was like it wasn't even a tasting menu where similar things happens. It was, I think we were just a group of people, and somebody just said, just bring us food, just bring us food, bring us what you think we should have, because then it was just all about the conversation the whole time. Like, you want more food, bring us more food. And I remember just how much of an experience that was, where it felt so much more communal, and just it was a great conversation. There was no interruptions of what do you want. It was just keep bringing food, and I think that's where that sort of omakase experience is also special, in the sense that it doesn't make it, you don't have to go into your own head of what do I want, individual, what do I want. It's like we're all just sharing and bringing out food, and it just feels so much more, um, you know, bonding together with the people you're with. And so I think that was also the nice touch there. Um,
absolutely. And I love that experience. I love it, because like a lot of times we just think of like food or restaurant as like sustenance, right? I just want to eat. I just want to, fill myself. Like this is something we have to do as humans, right? And um, like every so often you come to a restaurant where they treat their food as like almost like an extension of themselves, as an art, as their way of like showing love, right? And they take their you know their food craft as a craft and as an art, and really care about the experience that the customers have,
right.
um, and and that's what makes certain restaurants so special. And that they're not all expensive. There's some restaurants that are definitely a lot more budget friendly, but when you talk to the owner, and you hear from them what their kind of mission is, right, with their food, or what their restaurant
Right.
really was about, or how they started, it's so cool to know that people are out there, in that industry, just focused on excellence, and just really, again, trying to build community in their own way, and trying to give to people in their own way. And then restaurants that are not like that, that are trying to extract from you as much dollar as they can with giving you as little like value or like quality as they can, it's very apparent too, right? And sometimes
Right.
I love these places, right? Like, I don't want to say the name, but one fast food restaurant, no matter what, since I've been eating it since I was young, I like go there once a week, and it's absolutely bad food, right? It's like
Right.
not good
Right.
for you, no nutritional value, but it's like got these, flavors that are a little bit nostalgic, and maybe I'm attached to now. But yeah, it was nice to come across some of those restaurants, and really, get to enjoy it with people. And it's a good experience. But I feel like we're trying to do that with real estate. And um, I know that is what brought you and I together in a lot of ways. And seeing that type of mastery and crafting and experience giving and community building and service orientation, like all those things really kind of being done here in the real estate industry.
Mhm.
And so, yeah, but it is one of those qualities that's like across in the industry, you see excellence, you can experience it, right? And it, and you can almost taste it. So yeah.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. When you, yeah, it's yeah, one of the things, once you experience that, it's sort of like you want just more of that. You can almost get addicted to that sort of level of excellence, and it comes across all things, right? Like, you can apply the same sort of principles across all things, right? Like, from food to hospitality to craftsmanship of building things, right? To, like, I think that's, I mean, not to go into this tangent, but that's where like Steve Jobs sort of separated from the rest of the tech world, right? Was sort of that excellence in the experience of the products you're using. Other people
Right.
approached it much more transactionally. Hey, you need the computer to do this? There it goes. It'll do that. You got it done. But it was much more problem solving, you know, just how do we get the code to do these things? But he brought it to a whole level. Like, no, I want this to be a beautiful experience. I want this to be something that people, really connect to. And obviously, it worked out okay for him. But yeah, I think that's exactly it. And I think that's where, you know, if you adulterate things by trying to become transactional with them, right? You make them, you lose what their essence was when you make it to about like transactionally versus, this is just, we're giving, we're trying to build community, and that's it. And so, which is one of the things we talked about. We had our business track this week, right? And that was sort of the main theme of it, right? Was building community, building relationships without expecting something in return, but doing it as a way of life, and doing it in your SOI, and doing it as well as in your communities, in the geographic farms, as people call them, right? And in how you have the experience of the listings you put out there. So when I have a listing, what's the experience like, not only for my seller, but what's the experience like for everybody in that community having that listing in their neighborhood? And how do we bring them into it, and to give them a sense of, this is, they're participating in the sale of this home, as well as the people that come into the home to look at it. How do you make this, that experience from start to beginning, a real special experience of that level of excellence, right? Versus putting a sign up, printing some flyers out, and hoping somebody brings you a buyer, right? And making some easy guaranteed money because it's a listing, right? Um,
Right.
and that's, yeah. And so I think that's where. So what were your thoughts and takeaways from the business track with regard to that?
Yeah. I know this is like a few weeks, few months in the making, but really it's a lot of years in the making for us, right? The business track was to be a little bit more of the holistic training that we want all agents to be a part of, and to kind of live by, right? And to implement to their business. And what was awesome about it for me, as I was sitting back in that first session where you were, sharing about sphere of influence, and what the principles are there, right? The main themes that I heard, and then I felt little light bulbs going off in the room, people kind of shaking their heads, and almost like in agreement, right? There was a click, I think you could feel in the room, when it really, was geared towards being a good human, like, right? And being a
Right.
good friend, right, to the people in your sphere of influence, and not looking at it for a sec as a realtor that's trying to get more business per se, but as a human trying to give value to their community, and to form community, and help shape and guide and lead community even, and to give value to it. And so I think what I liked about it, especially at that point, is it felt like some of the pressure was off for people, right? Because I think people think in terms of like, how do I be a better producer? How do I go after more deals? How can I like talk to someone and win a deal over, or make new deals via my SOI?
Right.
But I loved what that did for the tone of the business track, because it was a 2-day thing, and it really was like, hey, put all that aside for a sec, and just think as a human, who is my community? Who do I want to commit to? What kind of value do I want to give them? How can I deepen the relationships with my community? And then let everything kind of flow from there, right?
Right.
And it's funny to think that way, because I think we a lot of days just go through the day, right? We do our work, we come home, and we have families, or we're single, and we just kind of have our routines that we go through. But very rarely do we just sit down and think like, how can I add more value here? Like, what could I do to deepen relationships, and so everything kind of flowed from there. And I think that was really refreshing for me to see. I think a lot of our agents echoed that as well. that
Yeah.
that we can really be about that, right? And start there, and then all of a sudden, like the creative juices flow, right? Like, what do I
Right.
like? What am I interested in? What are people around me interested in? Versus like, what's going to get me more business? Like what can I do to like, get my name out
Yeah.
there more? Like, it's so funny to see that shift.
Well, especially since right now, because it's no secret that transactions are down, so that means income is down for a lot of people. And so when that happens, right, the voices of tactical, how do you get more deals? Like, how are you going to go find and scrape from every corner that you can of the bucket to get some more deals, right? And I think that to be contrarian is not our intention, right? To say like, hey, no, don't become more gimmicky and tactical. Like it's just the truth. It's like we're not trying to be a trainer that's just not true. That's not real. What's real is getting out there more, building more community, getting in front of more people, because the more people you're in front of, the more people you're giving to, the more you're going to have things work in your favor in life. And just when you think transactionally about it, it becomes less effective. And speaking of the being a great human, I think that one of the things that actually even had some impact on me because of really going through the whole um, you know process of talking about it and teaching it and being and getting more in depth was the personal branding part, because a lot of people think of the personal brand, they still have the realtor hat on, and so they think my personal brand, I'm a great negotiator. It's like, what's good? It's like, no, no, no. In life, are you a great negotiator? Like you go around negotiating everything you do, and you're really great at it. Is that what your friends think about? Matt, he's a great negotiator. You know, it's like, no, you're talking about your realtor brand. You can't yet take your hat off. Be like, who are you as a person? Because that's what people want to see in your personal brand, right? They want to see who you are. You have to be a great negotiator as a realtor. You should be good at getting a home prepped and staged and marketed and knowing how to do that. You should be good at getting your offer accepted and negotiating. You should be good. Those are your realtor skills and your competencies. But that's not your personal brand, right? And your personal brand is who you are as a person. What are you about? What are your values? What are you trying to do here on this earth? And how are you trying to make things, better for people? And hopefully you are trying to make things better for people around you. But the point is, that's who your personal brand is. And that's what people want to see more of. And again, that's that authenticity. And we were at the Tom Ferry conference, and the guy on stage, the guy from, was 1000 Watt. I forget, but he was he's an old school, been around a long time, branding, marketing guy. And what he said is his one biggest piece of advice to realtors was less marketing, more branding, right? Stop the marketing, stop the, always talking about real estate and call to actions and hit, and I see this a lot. Most agents right now are doing what a lot of people are starting to call objection handling on social media. They're trying to tell you why what you're hearing is wrong. They're objection handling. Like, I know you think that the market's bad or this, but listen, there's this, and they're doing that, versus just like, look, the people that have to do something or really want to do something are going to reach out to you if they want to buy or sell a house right now. And it's mostly like a needs base for a lot of people. So just be who you are so they want to work with you, and absolutely share options and opportunities and your product knowledge and things like that out there. There's nothing wrong with that. But I think when all you're doing out there is trying to look like you're trying to get other deals by convincing people it's a good time to buy or sell, you're not building relationships, you're not building community, you're kind of just self-promoting yourself and trying to convince people to take action. And that's not what people need to see more of. They need to see more of who you are, what you care about. That's where it's at. So
And that's what's going to connect you with others, right? um, in a very authentic way. Versus, I hear this from agents too. It feels like, man, my clients are so transactional with me, right? Well, maybe the message you put out there was so transactional, that's what you attracted, right? Someone that
exactly.
would be transactional with you. And so, yeah, the reason why I love, and I know you love this business, is one, we think, again, this is one of the most important things that, or most important decisions that, the everyday person would consider, right? Buying a home, and not just for use and whatnot, but for investment. And so that makes it really, awesome to really be able to shoulder that and take that duty very seriously. But we also love it because it's so relational, right? You are, for those weeks, months, years, even that you're with a client and that you're helping them either sell or buy, that there's like an exchange of kind of life, right? Why do you want to buy? Well, this is our family, and we're about to have our first child, right? And we really care about this, that, and this for our future, in our family, right? And to really understand that and to know that and to think about that, and then to kind of go forward and help them find the best home that might suit their goal or their dream, right? We love it because of that. And I think, myself, and I know you included, it's like when we hear the noise, we have these like visceral reactions to like,
Yeah.
yeah, like that gimmick, that's just not it. It's like, it's not what it's about. And unfortunately, it feels like the industry to some degree has been like inundated with this, and it's been given a bad rep. And maybe even some of that bad rep is what we see playing out in some of these court cases, right? And kind of the perception of who we are and what we do, and the worst kind of expressions of that are what people are attacking, right? And so yeah,
Yeah.
I do think it's like, it's in our own way. Of course, we're trying to change the industry, right, in our own small corner, right, with our team of people we love. And yeah, for that reason, I think the business track was fantastic. And the thing about it though is we did 2 days from 9 to 3, and we know that's like the first inning of the ball game, right? There's not one training that's gonna be so definitive. And now we're like, man, what do we need to do to keep this conversation going, to keep people moving in the right direction, even after the fact. And so there is still, I know both of us, like a burning to like keep on with these agents and
Right.
keep, kind of leading them down the right path. And so loved it. I think we got such a great turnout from it, and really hope that agents walked away with nothing more, if anything, than that message that, um, look at yourself as a human, look at your clients
Yeah.
as a human, and how could you provide that great experience for them?
100%. Yeah. And I think that's where, you one time said something to me early on when we were working together, and you said about catching it, like you catch it, right, from being around people. And then it's true, like if I think about people that have impacted my life, it wasn't because they intentionally tried to train me on something, right? Like it was because I caught something from them, something they did, some mannerism, some way of looking at things, their perspectives. You kind of catch those perspectives. And sometimes we catch those perspectives early on, like from our parents or something, and we never move away from those, or we catch, something. But I think in a person who wants to actually create impact and change in people, and get out there and be a contributor to like the proximities we're in, right? Like you have to catch those things from people who have effectively done those things. And I think that's where, that more, it's not esoteric. It's more just, it's stop looking at the gimmicks and the tactics and start looking at the philosophies and the way people conduct themselves and the way people treat others that are effective in having the impact you want to have. And that's where you got to catch it from those people. And people want the quick fix. They want just like no, I want, give me the button I press and I get this, and it's like that's never worked for anybody who's been great at anything, right? And so if you're committed to being great at this profession as being a realtor, then you've got to commit to like being aware and looking at yourself, looking at others, and kind of deciphering the code that's in front of you to figure out how you need to be. And that's where we're trying to lead people down that path through example, through putting them in these areas where we push that home point home. This is not about tactics. This is about philosophies. This is about being a good human. This is about just trying to impact things in an unselfish and a giving way. And yeah, so yeah, it feels good
Absolutely.
to be a part of it. And so, and I think that again, you're right. Not the one training is not going to change the world for anybody. But I do think that as we iterate and keep that going and keep trying to create that impact within the company, I think I'm pretty excited about it. Um, sure.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So you mentioned the court cases. Do you want to talk about that for a minute here?
Yeah. Yeah. Let's
Yeah.
do it.
So
And I know when we've talked about this, it was like, you know, everyone deserves an update. Everyone
yeah,
should know what's going on and staying on top of this. But hopefully, it's not in a way where like it breeds a lot of fear still for people. Um,
Right.
but it is important to stay educated and stay on top of it. And so definitely we're going to talk about it. But we also thought about not talking about a way that leads to more fear and like a lot of like uncertainty and whatnot, but to really just stay on top of it and then kind of figure out from there what can we control.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I think so I think so let me go back to just the facts of the matter right now. What has happened since we last talked about it on Friday of last week, right? Is there's been some more lawsuits filed. There was one immediately filed after the hearing, so we knew about that one. But there's been some more lawsuits filed, but they're all stemming from the same thing. They're all stemming from commissions and sort of the structure of commissions that we operate under, or we have operated under for so long. And so there's no new, like, it's more of the same. And I do think that what's happening is because of the fact that this is becoming more national news, and so people are starting to hear about it like outside of our industry, right? For the last 3 years it's been going on, it's all just been chatter in our own industry. And as a matter of fact, a lot of even realtors, a lot of people in the industry didn't even know what was going on. Like there's probably a percentage of people who found out about it just in the last few months, right? Insider industry. But because now it's like people might outside the industry might be bringing it up to you as a realtor, it creates a lot more um, uh, worry, because you figure, oh, the consumers are now going to be against us, right? Because they're being told that we're not being honest, that we're colluding, we're a cartel, like all these words they use that are really, pretty strong words.
Right.
And then you also feel like you also want to have a response. Like you feel at that moment, I'm the spokesperson for our industry. What's my response to this? And I think that what I'll say, like to hopefully alleviate fears, is that there's nothing's going to change if what we are doing is the right way to do things. And I think that you have to dig deep and say, if we want to do these things the right way and serve the consumer the best we can, and I am the best at doing that in my field, I believe, or I shouldn't say the best, one of the best, or in the group or class of agents who do things in the best practices, who has the best intention for clients, then you will always be okay, right? Because you are able to be that service provider that's always going to be needed. Everybody's admitted we need agents, we need realtors out in the world. This is not a challenge to say we shouldn't have real estate agents. This is not a challenge saying we shouldn't have. It's saying the way that we've structured to organize real estate to in ways I think we earnestly thought was to better serve the consumer, but it's that's being challenged. But it's not saying that you shouldn't use a realtor to buy or sell a house. It's not saying that realtors shouldn't be paid as a buyer's agent or a seller's agent. It's not saying that either. It's just saying the way that NAR had it structured and the way these companies worked with NAR to, quote, collude with them, was to inflate prices or commissions artificially high. And then the main argument people use against this is that the Bright MLS up in Washington has been doing this for a long time and commissions haven't gone down. Like they've not made buyers cooperate or sellers cooperate. And so there you go. That should give you, that shouldn't be your comfort in saying, no, like we shouldn't get rid of NAR, or we shouldn't go after them. It should be just saying, oh, look at market dynamics still keep our prices where they are, because that's what it takes to sell a house and help someone buy a house. That's to take someone who's dynamic enough to really guide through the biggest personal transaction anyone's ever going to make in their lives, most likely. You have to have someone who's willing to pay money. Why do lawyers get paid so much money, right? Because they have a certain level of expertise, and the market pressure. You need a lawyer, you're going to pay that much money, right? It's just what it is. Same thing with the doctor, anybody else. So the point is, like realtors, if we really bring value, we're always going to get paid probably about what we've been paid, because commissions have been negotiable the whole time. So, and clients, there's no secret, clients negotiate with you, but we still end up at a certain level. And there are agents who have been willing to undercut all of us for many years now. So if it was possible, it would have been done also within this structure. So there's just really no reason to be worried about this at all. I mean, if you're NAR, maybe you're worried. If you're one of these other big companies, you may be worried because you're in the lawsuit, you're in the line of fire. But for the rest of us, I think the results it's going to have on the industry is going to be very minimal when it comes to your daily life. Maybe there's a different person organizing real estate for all of us. Maybe there's different contracts we have to use and to navigate things. Maybe some brokerages may be affected by it, impacted by it. But the agents, you're probably the safest people in this whole thing. So agents should not be worried. And the best thing you can do is not try to fight it or to go down a negative path, but just embrace that, hey, let's see how things go, right? I mean, this maybe there's some logic behind what they did. Maybe the jury's not, you know, misinformed or wrong. Maybe there's some merits to something. I don't know. I'm not making a claim here either way. I'm just saying, let's just focus on our businesses, focus on what we need to focus on, and agents will be very little impacted by this in the long run, in a meaningful way. Maybe just in small little ways they do things, but not in a meaningful way.
Yeah, absolutely. We know that even on the stand, that some of the people who've testified uh, on the plaintiff side said that they were really happy and satisfied with their agent's service, and that they,
Right.
in some ways, found value, right, to having an agent. And so, yeah, I think you're right on that. I think, control what you can control. Don't make decisions based out of fear right now, and then continue to bring value, right, and give great experiences for your customers. And I
Yeah.
think everything's gonna be all right. And I almost want to reiterate, like in the commercial sector, we don't have quite an MLS like structure or system.
Right.
We have associations, but not everyone is required to join also to get the information they need to be able to sell.
Right.
And so, we've kind of been doing that since forever, right? And writing offers with commission that we were asking for written into them. And so yeah, so I think exactly what we were saying kind of all along. I wonder if the industry for the residential side of real estate does start heading more that direction, and I think that's okay. It's not that scary
Yeah.
in that sense. And so, what's also interesting about all this is like kind of the chatter you and I have been hearing about all the different, okay, who's going to win in this, right? Who's
Right.
poised and positioned to really take advantage of now this court case and the shifts that might happen from it? What does the future of real estate look like, in light of all that? And so I know we've heard some things even this past week that you and I were like, ah, man, is that really going to happen? Is that, or is that a sensational like headline that has kind of caught us, or, a conversation that just makes us feel like, hey, we should be paying attention to these guys, or we should like see a lot of value in these guys, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, and I know some of that was with Zillow, right?
Oh yeah. 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 We did hear sort of some chatter from people that have information that maybe not all of us are privy to, but just as far as the outlook on things, and the chatter was that Zillow is looking geared up to go direct to consumer to some extent, right? And we've seen this progression, right? Which is and I'll, before anybody gets worried about that, I have some other things I'll say about this, but um, the um, the flex program that Zillow put out was then they started actually getting a referral fee from agents, right, as they became a broker for that. And um, it was a 30% or 35% originally. I'm not sure exactly, but they would basically give agents a lead. They wouldn't pay up front. Like the normal Zillow model is you paid monthly for certain zip codes to get leads, and then they went to this flex where you didn't have to pay up front anymore. You just had to prove to them you can handle a lot of leads. So they interviewed people to make sure they had processes in place for servicing buyers, made sure they had a team in place so they can handle a flow of leads on a pretty steady, consistent basis, as well as have some growth there as well. And so this started a few years back, right? Several years ago. And so this was the model where people said, okay, now they're essentially a brokerage that just refers out. They don't have their own agents, right? They're just referring out deals to people, which, is a brokerage, right? Just doesn't have their own agents necessarily. So now if they decide we're going to go direct to consumer and have our own agents, then they're becoming sort of like a Redfin, right? But maybe a much bigger Redfin in that sense, right? And so that's just what we're hearing now. So what I think about this, and maybe I'll let you give your thoughts, but real quick, to me, it makes no difference to me. What Zillow's been doing for a long time is taking top funnel leads and giving it to the people in their network, right? So that's a brokerage. Even if it wasn't a brokerage, they're getting leads for real estate and they're giving it to people who they have picked because those people are giving them money, or those people are good at what they do and they know they're going to get their referral fee. That's what they've been doing all along. Becoming a brokerage, I've always thought would make no sense to them, because then they take on the liability it was like the most genius, business plan is like, here I can get 40% split without having to worry about getting pulled into lawsuits or having to deal with managing agents in any capacity. Just give them the leads, and we get more than their brokers even get for actually having to be there, helping them and training them and taking their questions. So, it's a great business model. So to me, it always said, why would Zillow ever become a brokerage, right? Because it's a better deal what they've got in some ways, right? So I think that now, um, if they do decide to, because they already are a brokerage, right? But if they decide to go direct to consumer and get leads and then give them to, I just don't see much of a change for us as agents. We still want to compete against Zillow. We still want to get to that lead before Zillow gets to it. Like, there's no difference there. And if they get agents and they start helping those agents to get more business, I think it's still going to be the same thing they're doing already. So to me, it doesn't make a big difference, but just something that to be aware of, that Zillow is becoming just more and more competitive to all of us, right? To every agent in that sense. And I think they've always been, but now they're more so. So to me, it's not much of a meaningful change, but it's still like a way that agents can look at it to say, hey, if I'm not one of their top people, maybe I don't want to give money to them. Maybe I want to spend my money towards getting top funnel leads for myself that I don't have to pay them anything for, and then keep those relationships. Because I'm assuming that Zillow, even if you get the Zillow lead and you close it, Zillow still considers that customer theirs, and they're going to continue to market to that customer. Whereas if you get the customer first, it's your customer. But that's my thought on that. But go ahead. What do you think, Abe, about that development? If it's
Yeah,
true.
ditto. I know that there's in the history of Zillow's kind of like time, there's always been that question. Will they become a brokerage? Will they become a brokerage? They're so set up for it. And I know they've always answered is no, we'll never do that. We'll never burn kind of our referral partners and whatnot, and people that advertise with them in that way. And so I agree with you. I think their setup is so good. Why would you ruin it? Right. You and I are in the
Yeah.
trenches every day of being brokers. And so we know maybe a little bit better than most what the business really entails. And so sometimes, yeah, being Zillow sounds really good. But I do think the call is like you've been saying, right? And then we've been talking about more recently, like get the top line lead, right? Create that funnel for
Yeah.
yourself. Don't be subject to anyone else and what their terms are with you. And lately we've been seeing even Zillow Flex now going to 40%, right, instead of 35, or maybe before it was 30.
Yeah.
And so
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, don't be subject to that at all, right?
Yeah, well, and that's what I was telling people that for the longest time. I think an agent we were talking to recently that was a Zillow person that we were, recruiting to the company, and he was on a Zillow team, and they were all buyer side. And I told them, it's great that you guys have these leads, but the thing is that the more you're down the funnel, right, the more that the top funnel people can kind of turn that knob. And I kind of called it because like a month later, Zillow Flex went up to 40%. So they turned that knob a little bit, take a little more extraction from your commissions, your income. And if you look at the funnel, just so people understand, like top funnel is where you meet the lead. That's the first enter the funnel at the top. Middle funnel is like follow up, right? So the middle funnel is follow up. And the bottom of the funnel is where the transaction occurs, right? Where and for this case, I'll say that's once you're hired. You're either hired as a buyer agent or you're hired as a listing agent. That's like the bottom. That's the closing moment. Not when it closes escrow. We'll say that just for sake of this. But Zillow started off just top funnel. They give you the lead, and then you get them. You got to use the middle funnel, and you got to take them all the way to kind of when they're ready to hire you. And Zillow, what they've done is they've just kind of started. They started just getting lower and lower down the funnel. Right. That's all it was. They started, okay, we'll do the follow-up for you. We're going to hand them off right when they're ready to transact, because we have an inside sales team. They're going to keep in line with them. They're going to keep in flow and keep do all the follow-up activity. And then we're just going to give them to you when they're actually ready to go see a house and they're ready to write an offer. And so that's where they've gotten with Flex, where these people that they're giving in the Flex program, that's the 40% referral fee now, is like those people are ready to transact. Like they don't give them to them until they're actually ready to transact. And so they've gotten all the way up to the bottom of the funnel, right? To the bottom, right? All the way down, I guess you say, to the bottom of the funnel. So it's just a matter of like, okay, so now they're going to have their own agents and they help them close as well. And they get just all the way to the bottom. And so to me, again, just as long as you beat them at the top funnel, you don't have to worry about all these things. Just beat them at the top, get the lead at the top to yourself, and then you'll be fine. Um, but yeah, I think that the last mile mentality that we are as agents, the last mile. We're the ones that, Amazon can get it to like the closest they can to our house, but there's still got to be a human that drives it over and drops it off. And that last mile is the agent in our case, is that we got to be the person that does the transaction and walks them through everything and does that. And I think that if we only become that, then we're really at the mercy of everybody and anyone that wants to be the person that's actually getting all the other logistics going, following up, getting the lead. And I think that's why we don't want to be, relegated to just the last mile delivery person. Right. And so,
That's right.
yeah,
There's no doubt that online leads have value. There's no doubt that Zillow brings value to agents, and that a lot of business has been done as a result of, the programs that Zillow has, and other like lead generating sources, right? Like Commissions Inc. and a few of those others like Boomtown. And I know some of our agents are using these things. And so I love though what you said at our business track training. Don't be good at everything, right? Be great at a few things, and you'll be much more poised to grow your business, right? I think the moment we start to see some success in the industry, we think, oh man, we just need more leads. We need more leads. Let's just keep, going out and get more
right,
leads. So we'll do this, that, and the other thing to get leads. And then we kind of become diluted, right? And not as potent. And so I think the message was, hey, get really good at just a few things, right? And the more things you try to take on, the less you're good at any one of them, right?
right.
And so we've always preached. I know you've been preaching longer than I about SOI, because the data is there, right? 70%, 80% of people's businesses are based off of their sphere of influences and referrals that are created from that.
Right.
So why not focus on that, right? And get
Yeah.
creative around it, and utilize technology to help you kind of focus on that, and find new ways to connect, right, with your SOI. And
Yeah.
so
And
yeah,
no, I'm sorry. I just want to just, because 70%, it's even better than 70% of people's businesses in this sense. Like I might only get 20%, let's say, from referral, right? Like if I'm an agent, just Zillow, but 70% of sellers, that's how they choose their agent, right? So if you're getting 50%, well, you're missing out somehow, right? Like, and if you're getting 90%, well, you're doing a great job at that. I mean, but the point is, 70% of people choose their agent to sell their house through referral, right? That's what the data shows. And so it's just yeah, if you're not owning those proximities, you're not owning those relationships. And that's, and I was like, okay, yeah, but imagine if Zillow would have at the beginning going, hey, we're gonna have Zillow open houses. We're gonna actually send people to open houses to get leads and then send them to you. And we're gonna do Zillow door knockers, and we're gonna send those people out to the communities. They're gonna knock on doors, they get the lead, then give them to you, right? They would have never gone anywhere, right? They would never be. Zillow said, we're gonna be online. That's all they did, right? They one channel online, and that's why they became who they are. So when agents try to go, we're going to do this, and we're going to do that, and we're going to do this, and it's just, no one ever grew business by trying to manage 10 sales channels at once. Even when I had a tech company, they said you go into the wrong channel too soon. You have too many channels of sales, it kills your business, because you want to have one channel. If it's direct to consumer, or if it's through radio, it's this. You got to have one channel of sales. You cannot try to get, because a lot of companies try to get partners to sales channels, and it's like you try to get those partners too soon, you can't do it. You got to have a direct sales team and then go to partners, or you can go all partners and have no direct sales people. You just go partner channels. Like, you sell my product for me. I don't even have this internal sales team. But if you try to do both, you usually have a real struggle. And so it's like the same thing in real estate is, yeah, like you're saying, just trying to do too many things, you dilute your efforts, and you can't focus on it. You can't get good at any of them either. So, and we hear this a lot, but people don't follow it often.
yeah. Oh, we have started to preach this too, right? That you can't be great at that. Let's take like a hyperbole, right? You can't be a great seller of like 10 states in the United States, right? You
Right.
can't have a real estate business sprawls all that and be an expert in every state.
Right.
And so our suggestion to our agents even this past week was, hey, you really should start thinking about a geo farm. and areas or niches that you are an expert in, and then that value really can't get taken away from you, right? If you're a great person that does online leads, you're subject to the online lead source, right? But when you're an expert in an area, a specific geo area, even, there's so much value there, right? And that's the natural place to start creating community as well, right? To build
Right.
relationships with people around you, and that's something that unfortunately, like online lead sources cannot do, right? That's the one thing you can do that they'll never be able to replicate in that sense. And um, so yeah, I agree with almost, again, everything you're saying. Hopefully, there's just not a lot of need for fear unless you are dependent on these things that may not be in your control. And then again, like, would love it if our agents or agents that are hearing this, like, just focus on the things that you're really good at, and again, relationships can't get taken away from you in that sense,
Yeah.
as long as you bring value, consistent
Yeah.
value.
Yeah, and everything ends up in the referral funnel anyway, right? You said this the other day. Whether I get online leads and close that online lead, whether I get door knocking lead and close that client, so close them, close a transaction with them, they still end up in that referral funnel, right? And so no matter what your sources of business are, why not have a really strong customer experience, a really great customer community building methodology to make sure that every time someone comes in line with your business or in contact with your business, they're going to stay in contact for the rest of your career, right? And even beyond, if you decide to move on and pass on your client, your community base to someone else, right? But yeah, so I mean that's what we look at, and it's, as long as, again, I guess we can't say this enough. As long as you're great at what you do as a realtor, we're always going to be. It's a special transaction. It's not buying widgets. It's not even travel. Where we travel once a year. Sometimes people travel more than once a year. Maybe small trips, big trips, or at least they travel much more often than they buy homes. So it's not going to be the travel agent type scenario. It's not. There's no other transaction like a real estate transaction. And even in the commercial world, like you mentioned, where people are savvy as anything when they're buying commercial buildings, or a lot of them are very savvy. A lot of them know more about real estate than a lot of real estate agents, right? They still use agents, right? When big, huge companies sell their companies, they still use investment bankers to get the deal done and to broker it. There's always a need for that person to make sure all the pieces come together that can bridge, you know, conversations that get adversarial. They can bridge understanding. They can really come find middle ground for people to make the deal work. Brokers in any sort of capacity are always very valuable individuals, as long as they bring value to that process and as long as they're good at it. So, yeah, no, there's a more complicated way of saying it, but we're always going to be in business as brokers, as agents. It's just, however, whether we pay our dues to NAR, whether we pay homes.com a monthly fee, or pay, whoever it might be that's organizing it for us, we're still going to be the center of the transaction.
That's right. And we're excited about this, like, kind of era of shift and change, and like, and clarity, even in, like, the markets, right? And the markets going down and being a little slower. We're really excited about this. Not in like a delusional way, or like just a
Right.
crazy way, right?
Yeah.
But we really think this does, in a lot of ways, help us kind of like work towards our mission, right? In a very natural way. I think we've all looked at this industry, and we've all looked at people we've worked with, even in the other side of transactions, and thought, man, that was rough, or that was tough. I hope I never come across this agent again, or this type of experience doesn't happen again. And what's cool about this is, cream always rises to the top in that sense.
Yeah.
Agents that survive this kind of time, I think, I can even thrive. Again, there's clear value they're providing, right? There's clear things that they're doing that they're excellent and valuable. So it kind of puts us closer, and helps us to see, that, and who's really thriving here, and find ways to connect with them. So it's like again, exciting time for us, and I'm excited about it. Excited about growing in this climate, and what's coming in that sense,
Yeah.
and then we'll
Absolutely.
stay on top of what's happening for our agents, so that you don't have to worry so much. And if you do have some fear or question or thought, or even some insight on this, yeah, I would love to keep talking with you and stay on top of it.
Absolutely. And I just say like, yeah, just I'd say for right now, stop clicking on the videos about it because it's just more of the same things being said. It's you know all the real estate influencers, and I'm even getting YouTube feeds from people that don't even have that many followers on YouTube or anything, but they're just talking about these cases.
Yeah.
So they're being pushed out and they're getting more hits than they've ever had, and they're all of a sudden, so people are using this to get clicks and views as well. So right, and so you're going to see a lot of it. I say just don't click. You're you're not going to learn anything much more substantial. It's more if we're muddying waters, and the people that are talking about it may not really have the insights or sophistication to really interpret it well for you. And we're doing our best, but I do think that based on our experiences, kind of outside the industry and other more areas of legal and how we pay attention to a lot in the world. I think Abe and I do about these things, and I think we don't have an agenda of trying to sell you like you know where things are going based on how it can help you be more dependent on us, or you need to watch my next video because I'm going to tell you more about it and scare you a little more. And and it's no, we're giving it straight, and our message is one of, I think, reason and well, pretty well, I think, organized and well thought out as far as how we've approached it. Not to so anyway, I recommend just don't click on it for a while. Just it's kind of like people clicking on like political videos. It just gets them either more angry, riled up, or more fearful. I think it's the same thing going on here right now that I'm seeing. So
100%,
yeah,
100%. Man, a few weeks ago, while we're doing a broker brew, we asked for kind of topics from agents. So
yeah, yeah,
we haven't forgot about this one, so we wanted to bring it up today while it's kind of a vacation or about a holiday edition of
yeah,
broker brew. But crypto, it's been going up quite a bit. Um, you know, it's I think in the last year doubled in value. Bitcoin has, and a
yeah.
lot of other coins have seen a lot of value increases. What's going on? What's happening? What's the reason for it? And do you endorse it?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, no. Well, I'll say this though. I do hear conversations, on the sidelines of the soccer field. When I'm watching my daughters, and there's one uh, dad in particular that actually has been pretty into crypto for since early days, and so him and I kind of talk about it. And he's pretty knowledgeable, and we'll just chat about it. But I do also hear other people, like one time it came up in conversation and they all just started just bashing it, right? And how ridiculous it was and how ridiculous NFTs were, and just kind of, and it had like these really strong opinions on it. But yet what they're saying, I could tell they didn't really understand it. And that's okay. I mean, there are valid arguments to say things about crypto are wrong, or this is, I'm not saying that crypto's all around the whole industry is great, but I do think there's a lot of people who for some reason have decided to take a strong stance without really understanding it. So I think mostly it's just understanding is the important thing, right? To understand and try to learn about it, because it is. But I think you have the same thing. I think a lot of what you call retail investors in the stock market don't necessarily understand company fundamentals of how to value companies, and they kind of listen to the advice of others, and even if they do self manage their funds, a lot of times they're still just taking their advice from like maybe one or two sources that they trust, right? It's not like they're really researching and learning and how to look at companies and seeing how their fundamentals are stacking up against their price to earnings ratios and things. They're not looking at it that way. So I think with crypto, it's going to be the same thing, that you're either listening to one or two people. And I think what I would just say is, like, I would like to hear your thoughts, because you have been in the crypto longer than I have, and I think you have a pretty good sober way of looking at things, not hype, not this, just more like understanding what it is and how to do that. And I understand it from a technology standpoint and what things can do, but and to some, not 100%, but like to I think more than most. But the point is, I think just I'd like to hear your thoughts on just what can our agents start to do to get themselves familiarized with it, to where they don't have just an opinion based on maybe other things, but like actually understand some of the fundamentals of it. Um,
Yeah. I think the first thing to really understand, it's a spec investment, right? And so buy, hold, whatever at your own risk, right? And really try to
sure.
understand it, versus jump on bandwagons, and a lot of times
Right.
that doesn't lead to good things, right? So, like, my history with it is someone that I know, we'd hang out socially, this was years ago, he would just not stop talking about crypto, about Bitcoin specifically at that time. And so we'd be at like kind of a party or like a social setting at a happy hour, everyone's drinking, having a good time. And he would just be like, again, just in his own lane and talking about crypto, even though you didn't want to hear about it, right? Even like, hey, stop talking about this. Let's have a good time, right?
Right.
And so he was the first one to really bring it kind of to my attention and really almost like indoctrinate me, right?
Right.
Involuntarily. I got indoctrinated, but yeah, I could just tell that the guy was really passionate about it and that he had a really strong belief in it. And so started looking into this, and it took me a while to become a believer as well. But once I saw what it was, I realized, man, this is actually really interesting and cool, but also like kind of mission driven thing, right? Bitcoin was, and it was really a response to the financial crisis, which I at the time was in the middle of, right? As a person in mortgage banking, and just saw the destruction, but also what led to that and the greed and just the craziness in loan
Right.
products
Right.
and just all kinds of stuff. And, I was still relatively young, so I didn't really understand it. But I knew that when the financial crisis happened, it created a shift. And I know for young people, it was, they feel now disenfranchised. They feel like they can't trust, you know, financial institutions that seem to be trustworthy, these big 100, 200-year-old companies that we're supposed to like rely upon and our money safe with. And they couldn't trust even the like the political players around this. And what was this all for? We're being extracted of our value. Um, and was this all kind of somewhat intentional? Is this game, so to speak, the financial business, is it all rigged, and is it rigged against us? And I know people still feel that way to some degree, and maybe they're playing the game still with eyes wide open that there's an unlevel playing field here. And that's where Bitcoin kind of came to rise and was created. And so I think all those things truly struck me. And then kind of went on this path of like really looking at crypto, getting caught up in the hype of like, whoa, people are making money on this thing, and then that guy just saw, 10x his money in like a couple weeks, or 100x his money in, a couple weeks. And, it was just kind of a crazy time. But I just remember thinking, what a great kind of mission behind it. And the fact that Bitcoin itself, there will never be more than a fixed number of Bitcoin in circulation. And we're seeing right now, cash being printed, right? Like
Right.
there's no
Right.
tomorrow, so to speak, right? And for inflation to be hit as a result of that, that Bitcoin at the very least is something that can't be manipulated in that way, in terms of
Right.
its quantity, and that having some value. And so there's a lot of different ways you could take Bitcoin and look at it, but I just look at it as something that maybe has that value where you can't fully manipulate the quantity of it. I know people manipulate the price of it at times, and just like you would a stock or something else, it's an asset that's traded highly. But Bitcoin is something that may hold value and maybe something that you can count on to store because the quantity of it will never be manipulated. I particularly like that about Bitcoin, and the fact that now it's relatively widely adopted, and recently the value of Bitcoin has been seeing spikes because there's this talk about ETFs, right? Based on Bitcoin being released and being allowed, right? Um,
Yeah.
that being kind of interesting, exciting, and I like it. My personal opinion on it is I hope that all goes through, because I know a lot of people are a little bit scared to hold Bitcoin just on the sheer fact that they have to manage a wallet, right? And they may not know how to do that, or may feel a little bit scared about that. It's almost like holding a bearer bond, right? Like what if
Right. Right.
what this thing burns, or if I lose it, or someone steals it from me, and there's those fears. So we'd rather have our money in a bank that we think we can trust, or someone else managing it, so that we don't have to worry about all those things. And there's some fidelity there, right? So
Yeah.
yeah, so I think people are excited that it may become an ETF. I know there's been talks about that for a long time. But I do think if that happens, the value of Bitcoin will see a rise. And then this year is a halving year for Bitcoin. And what that means is, in order to maintain the network, there's this mining operation that happens, and for people who participate in the mining operations and help uphold the blockchain, there's these rewards that are given for their work in it and their participation in it. But this year, the rewards get cut in half, and so there's a little bit less quantity, so to speak, or it takes more time to get the same quantity. And so for that
Yeah.
reason, every time we've seen it historically, there's been a rise in Bitcoin price. And so I like it. I'm a firm believer in it now, and I've gone through my ups and downs with it, like, in terms of seeing the value, do all kinds of things, of course. But I even had some Bitcoin stored in exchange that went through bankruptcy, right? And now going through
Right.
that, and who's reliable here? Like, what can we trust? But I think through and through Bitcoin and also Ethereum, I see a lot of value in it. I think the market's starting to see that too. And if it does, if the ETFs do get approved, more widely, I think it's safe to say it's going to be around for a while.
Yeah.
And so I hope. And so yeah.
Yeah. No, I think that the real breakthrough will be when it becomes less volatile, right? Like once there's more adoption of it, right? Because I think that's what people are also afraid of is that because I think the argument is very clear that the US dollar, for instance, anytime the government can decide to print more of it and it completely devalues the dollars you have, right? It inflates. Um, and with Bitcoin, there are more Bitcoins being released, but there's going to be a finite amount at some point to where it cannot inflate by creating more Bitcoin, right? And so therefore it's going to be anti-inflationary and a hedge. But what the thing is, the price can fluctuate of it, right? So even though it's not going to be able to be artificially inflated to where the value of each coin goes down through just the printing of more Bitcoin, but it can based on the trading of it, right? But a lot of currencies can be traded, and there's can be things that can devalue or value money, and there's a lot of other things. But I think that once Bitcoin, people feel like it's going to be more stable, right? Is that what you're also do you think as far as what keeps a lot of people out of it is like the fact that they're looking for short-term gains rather than long-term. So those wild swings that can happen with crypto is more it creates a little more fear, as well as more storyline for people that are saying it's nonsense, right? Because when it crashes, everybody's the noise of "see, I told you it's crashing." Um, although it's pretty much back to about I'd say 70 to 80% of what it was at its highest, right? We're not close to maybe
It's getting there.
60%, but the point is it's in early ages it's going to have more volatility, and I think that the volatility will start to diminish, right? That's the idea as it goes.
Absolutely. And the value's risen so quickly, or so much so quickly, but this has been around for now a good amount of time, right?
Yeah.
Um, and there was a period where I used to trade this stuff because I thought, oh, what a great way to just make money. There's so much volatility in it. It's exciting. And I have deep regrets about trading it.
Yeah.
I wish I would have just took the money and held it,
Right.
and not thought of it. And so I think my biggest learning over the last, like, yeah, maybe 6 years or so of trying to figure out what to do with my money, my investment, my future, and setting myself up right in that way. My thesis has completely changed, I think, in a lot of ways. As a younger person, you think about the short term, like, gains, right? The quick money, the oh, I want to be a part of the 100x type thing. So I'm going to take risks, maybe risks that you shouldn't have taken, versus have a longer term view and dollar cost average into things, right? I was just talking with someone who did 1,500 flips, one of our agents at Circa, and as we're talking, the first thing that came up was, man, I have so much regret. I wish that I would have kept some of these homes that we ended up flipping, because they're amazing homes in great neighborhoods. And I look back on the price, on that particular house, and realize it's tripled in value from where I had bought it, right? And
Right.
so even in real estate, I think our thesis has always been, hey, buy it, hold it, don't sell it, right? Sell it if you
Right.
have to, absolutely have to. or if you do sell it, trade it into another piece, a bigger piece, something you can leverage even more into, right? And so that's my feeling now. And so even with something like Bitcoin, I hope that it's something I can give to my kids, down the
Hmm.
line, and leave to them, and it's incredibly valuable at that point. And that's now it's an institution, right? It's a part of our culture and about society, and it'll never go away. But I'm not looking at this year anymore. I'm not looking at next year or 5 years from now. What is it going to do? And it's really
Right.
helped like bring some health to me as an investor, because I'm pretty risk loving. For those that know me, I know you are too, Matt. That's why we love being entrepreneurs.
Right.
But but there's got to be some balance here, and looking at things long term versus just short term, again, has almost saved my life in ways financially. And
Right.
so yeah, so I think that'd be my note about it is, hey, don't get caught up in the hype. Don't think about how much you're going to make in the next few weeks, months, like next few years even. But if you do believe in something as an asset or as an investment, even in this real estate market, right? If you believe in real estate, there's no bad time to buy, so to speak. And I know I'm sounding like one of those guys, right? There's not really a bad time, but you do have to look at it as a dollar cost average. You'll never be able to time perfectly the bottom of anything, right? Unless you have a crystal
Right.
ball. But you can capture value as things bottom out, right? And as things
Yeah,
tick up. And so
exactly. And just to touch on that, to bring it home, with like daily cost averaging is basically you just buy little all the time, right? In a frequency that you just set. You can almost set it almost automatically, but you just buy a certain amount. Let's say you say, I'm going to buy $100 a month, let's just say, of crypto. And if you would have started doing that regardless a long time ago, you would ultimately be up in the long scheme of things, right? It depends on when you started, but it's similar to buying a house every year. Like, let's say starting in 2000, you bought a house every year and held it. Well, obviously at 2007, 6, 7, you paid at the top of the market, and then you'd be really upset about those houses that you bought in 2009, 2010. But you also bought a house in 2008, 2009, and 2010. You continue to buy. You didn't sell anything in 2011, 2012. By the time you get to 2023, every single house is up, right? And the ones that you bought in 2009 are probably tripled or quadrupled in value. And so your portfolio is good. But if you're trying to time that, so you're like, I'm not going to buy in 2009, 2010, and then you start buying again once you see it start going up in 2013, well, now you've missed out on that part that dipped that you would have just consistently bought into the market and bought, you would be up more. And I think that's where we're saying about timing is just that's why investors continue just to keep buying, because they go, if I start getting in the game of trying to time things, or getting the game where I'm trying to figure out, oh, where's the bottom, where's the high, and get buy as low as possible, sell as high, you could time it wrong. So if you just count on the long term, you'll be much better off, right? And
$100%.
that's the concept, yeah.
Yeah, I now tend to be really scared when everyone is doing something, right? Like
Yeah,
when
yeah,
everyone is jumping into something. And I remember, 2021, everyone was talking about crypto, NFTs, Airbnbs that they had bought, and now, like, my friend's grandma wants to buy, Airbnb and manage that. My parents have started asking me, how do we buy this Bitcoin? And
yeah,
so when it gets that kind of crazy, oftentimes it's kind of a signal of warning. And sure enough, like in 2021, things started to go down. Um, and even Airbnb, we're seeing what's happening with that now, right? And um, so yeah, so I think my like encouragement to people, as someone who's done a lot of like bad investing in my life, right? And wasted a lot of money in that sense. Like, yeah, take it easy, and then
yeah,
think long term, right? And learn from those who have made the mistakes before you, and listen to their wisdom, versus, no, I can figure it out, or that was the attitude I had. Was like, no, I figured it out. I'm a kind of an exception to the rule. I'll try this,
right,
like this thing or that thing, or I'll invest in this like really risky kind of industry that no one ever makes money in, but I can figure it out, right? Like,
yeah,
yeah, that probably isn't the right mentality. I like kind of a person that could testify
But
to that, I should say.
yeah, I think the advice I guess is to like, I mean, I always say the one common thing they say is do your own research, right? And I do believe you should do your own research, but also within that, I think just yeah, avoid like buying when there's like a real strong hype cycle about something, right? Like when everything's really being hyped up and everybody's I think that's be careful of that, and also be careful of selling when things are really looking bleak, because a lot of times they look bleak just before things get better, right? And so I think but I'm not suggesting to time things. I'm just saying again, daily, just invest as you go. Take the money you're going to invest and invest in things you really believe in and sort of understand, right? And to understand some degree, or if you find someone that you really trust as somebody who hasn't tended to make foolish decisions, and they tell you some advice of what they're doing. Yeah, I mean that's part of the learning process, right? That's kind of what we were talking about earlier, catching it, right? By being around it, being involved with it, and feeling like you're kind of getting a sense of things, right? But I definitely I think that watching like 10 YouTube videos and then thinking you got it all figured out and you know what to do, that's the dangerous part for sure. So
Yeah,
yeah,
it applies to our industry too. You know, it applies to our industry as well. And so I've come to a place now too where I used to trust just anyone that sounded like they had a good idea. Like, oh, that sounds like a good idea. Like, I trust you. Let's put some money into that, right? Um, but now what I look out for again are the professionals, the experts, right? Or the people that have had a long history of success, even investing their own funds into things versus what they're pitching me on, right? I think so
yeah,
often in our industry, we're trying to be experts, and this is kind of again not like a knock, but if you're a real estate agent but haven't yet bought a piece of property, um, you don't have the full picture yet, right? You don't have the full picture yet of what real estate is in some ways, right? And again, it's not a knock to people that are in our industry that work as agents that don't own real estate, but my hope is that you guys would all own real estate because you believe in it so much, and you see it as such a good asset that's what you're leading with in terms of servicing clients, and that's the mentality you have about our industry versus just making quick commissions, right? Or hey, yeah, just yeah, whatever it is, like selling the dream without participating in it. And so,
right,
so yeah, I am very wary of people, especially investments, where let's say an operator or the person expound like kind of sharing about the investment has no skin in the game. In fact, I used to talk to some people who were in the VC world that said, "Hey, we never make investments like that." Right? If the operator in the doesn't have any investment into it or has no skin in the game, we stay away from that. And there's only been really one exception that they've always kind of kicked themselves about, and that was Uber, right?
yeah,
Uber, the what's his name, Travis, the operator, the guy who helped found it, he didn't
mhm,
have money in the game. He had investors, all outside investors, and for that reason, a lot of people passed on it, including some of the
right,
famous investors we know. But he is the exception, not the rule. And so, my encouragement also to people in real estate is, hey, buy some real estate, plan to buy it. If you see value in it, do it, right? And I still
yeah,
believe that real estate is probably the best investment you can make. And I know it's kind of coming under fire right now because the market's down. But I'm almost certain that in this country, 10, 20, 30 years from now, we're going to see a lot of gains from it still. So I think the time is here and the time is kind of coming where real
yeah,
estate is going to pose even better value and maybe even better deals, right? And so that's why we do what we do. That's why we're doubling down right now.
yeah, 100%. Yeah, real estate's always going to be. I mean, whoever owns a piece of land, it's always going to be long term valuable. There's only so much of it in areas where you can actually utilize the land for ways that matter financially. So owning a part of that
100%.
scarcity is probably the ultimate scarcity. And then can't make more land. I mean, I guess we can build some man-made islands and that sort of thing, but for the most
Or
part,
Mars.
yeah, Mars, yeah,
We
yeah,
should-
yeah. That's yeah. Mars is real bearish for the Earth. If if everybody goes to Mars, yeah, Earth value might go down. So, but
That's right.
yeah, cool. All right, well, cool. Well, Ed,
All
by
right.
the way, guys, maybe we can share some resources. If anybody's interested in crypto, like really is, and wants just some sort of like tips from us, like to give you some, because we have been through it for a while, and it just any advice of who to maybe listen to or some resources, let us know. We'd be happy to share those. Because obviously there's a body of work on crypto that's way will surpass anything we can ever give you. But at least maybe we can point you in some of the directions and maybe tell you some people to stay clear of, because there are some people out there that definitely have less integrity in what they're doing with crypto for sure. But I guess the message is don't assume that all the negative stuff you hear about crypto means crypto's not a good thing, and don't also believe everything you hear about crypto is a good thing. It is a real thing. There is legitimacy to it, but it's just a matter of like there's still a lot of uncertainties about certain ones, and so definitely let us know. We'll be happy to point you in some directions.
Sounds good.
But, cool. Yeah.
All right, man.
Well, I think we've gone way over our time normally, so hopefully a few people stuck with us here. But
I know that's right.
But anyway, enjoy your Veterans Day. Enjoy your long weekend if you have it, and again, thanks for everyone who's served the country, and we appreciate all of you, and have a good weekend.
Have a good weekend, everybody. Have a good weekend, Matt.
You too, Abe.
I'll see you soon. Okay.